everyone! Today I'm doing a sew along for this boxy top pattern with front pockets. I've sewn it once before, it came out really nice, so I decided I wanted to duplicate it and have two in my closet. I hacked the original pattern that I found for free online at fabricsstore.com. I split the front and back into two panels and I drafted my own pockets to add to the front. This pattern is great for beginners and it's great for using up those scrap fabrics that you had no idea what to do with but you want to use them up. It's fun to sew, it's versatile, and I hope you sew along with me. I'm ready to cut out my pattern pieces. The only thing that I'm doing differently from the original pattern is I'm adding 3/8 inch seam allowance to the front and the back pattern pieces so that we can cut it in two separate pieces instead of on the fold as directed. And I drafted my own pocket piece here to measure 5 1/4 inch by 6 3/4 inch. I've cut my pieces out. Remember, we added 3/8 seam allowance to both the front pieces and also the back pieces. So you will have 2 front pieces, 2 back pieces, 2 cuffs, 2 pockets, and 1 neckband. We are cutting our neckband on the bias so that we have some mechanical stretch for when we go and attach it to the neckline. Placing my front pieces right sides together, we're going to pin. And then we're going to sew them together using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to serge. Remember, if you don't have a serger, you can always zigzag the edges with your regular machine. Do the same steps for your back pieces. I've pinned, then I'll sew and serge. Press your seams to one side, and then we're going to top stitch the seams down using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Top stitch your center front seams. Remember, we're doing this for the front and the back using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Press each pocket piece 1 inch to the wrong side. And then open them up and press them again 1/4 inch. And then we're going to go to our machine and sew top stitch that down with a 1/8 inch seam allowance for both pockets. Sew your pocket flaps down with the 1/4 inch piece flipped underneath the 1 inch flap and sew with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Press the remaining sides of your pocket with a 3/8 inch allowance to the wrong side. Match up the center of your pockets with the center of each panel and then attach the pocket roughly about 2 1/4 inches from the bottom. After you've pinned them, take them to your machine and sew the side and bottom edges using an 1/8 inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and at the end. We are ready to sew our shoulder and side seams. Place your front and back pieces right sides together and pin. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and then finish your seams with your serger or a zigzag stitch on your regular machine. Fold your cuffs in half, wrong sides together to create a crease, and then open it up and fold it right sides together and pin the short ends. We are going to sew these short ends for both cuffs using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I sewed my cuffs on the short ends using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and now I'm going to press open my seams for both cuffs. Now that our cuffs are prepared, it's time to add them to our shirt. I went ahead and basted the raw edges of both cuffs using the longest stitch on my machine, just so it all stays together, it doesn't move around while I attach it to the bodice. So here's my shirt, it is inside out. I'm going to place it inside my shirt and making sure that the bodice seam is toward the back. I'm going to line up that seam and pin. And then I'm going to match the centers, the shoulder seams and the center of the cuff and pin. And continue pinning all the way around. Take it to your machine and sew both cuffs at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And finish your seams. I've sewn and serged my cuffs onto the bodice. Now I'm going to press the seam of each cuff toward the shirt and then take it to my machine and top stitch along each cuff with 1/8 inch seam allowance, just like we did with the front and back center seams. Now all we have left is the neck binding and the bottom hem, and then we're completely done with our shirt. So I took my neck binding and I folded one short edge over about 1/4 inch, and that's where I'm going to start my pinning. So I'm going to place that folded edge onto the center back and pin. And then I'm going to take this binding all the way around and overlap it with the other side of the binding. Okay. Now I'm back where I started, and I'm going to just take that tail end, let it overlap, and just pin it. And now I'm going to sew all the way around my neckline with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now that I've sewn the bias binding to my neckline, I'm going to press the seam allowance up toward the binding. And then I'm going to turn the binding back to the inside of my shirt and also give that a good press along these edges to make them nice and clean. Alright, I'm finished folding my neckband under and pinning all the way around the neckline. Now if you also want to add a tag to your garment, now is the time to do it. So you could just open up a little area that you have already pinned and put your tag in there. And now sew it along the edge of your neckband. I went ahead and gave everything a really good press, including and especially the neckline that we just finished, make everything nice and pretty and flat. I also went ahead and pressed up my hem 5/8 of an inch. And now I'm going to roll it in the same manner that I did for the neckline binding and pin. So just roll the raw edge under until it meets the crease that you made with the iron and pin all the way around. Okay, now once you're done pinning all the way around, folding the raw edge underneath to meet the seam, you're going to sew along the edge of your hem and you're finished. Thank you guys for watching my Augustina boxy top pattern hack. Please let me know if you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you end up making one yourself, please make sure to tag me on Instagram so that I could see the designs that you came up with. Thanks you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.